mean by leavening? Leavening Leavening is a term which came out of a Latin word called liver. L-E-V-E-R. It's a Latin word which means to raise. Liver in Latin, which means to rise in normal English. So any dough or mass which is filled with molecules of carbon dioxide gas, thus it makes the dough with more volume, fluffy, soft and light. Right? Once this happens, once carbon dioxide gas is produced, and when it is heated, the proteins and sugars, proteins coagulate and the sugar caramelizes, and it will entrap the gas inside, thus giving softness, lightness and foaminess to the product. That is why it is called as leavening agents or rising agents. There are, explain in the product, softness, texture, we call it as a texture, right? If the food is not with the correct texture, will you be able to chew it? Will you be able to digest it? Will you be... Here we are going to know about or learn about what is the purpose of leavening. Could you tell me the purpose of leavening? For example, we are making a dosa batter. One day before we make the batter and we just keep it overnight, just to ferment. What is fermentation? Fermentation is a process in which yeast react with the sugar to form ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. The minimal quantities of ethyl alcohol will be vanished once the food is baked or cooked, because alcohol evaporates at 78 degrees Celsius, and the carbon dioxide gas which is trapped inside and it gives lightness and softness to the product. Pancake, we do the same process. It's a natural fermentation process. We leave it for overnight in room temperature. Naturally, the yeast develops, and the next day when we make it, we will get a soft and better product. The same thing applies for dosa, idli, and appam, etc. Right? Here, the purpose of leavening, I would like to tell you the purpose of leavening. Number one, to make the product light, to make the product soft, to make the product tender, to make the product easy to chewable, to make the product light, to make the product easy to swallow, to make the product easy to digest, and to enhance the taste and other qualities. And in fact, in some cases it will increase the volume of the product also. Okay, once I repeat. So now there are different types of leavening. Types of leavening. Number one.
Leavening meaning.
Leavening.
Yeah.
Leavening means came out of the Latin word called lever. Lever means in English to rise. So the leavening agents are otherwise called as rising agents. So there are different types of leavening which we are going to see. Number one, mechanical leavening. What do you mean by mechanical leavening? Mechanically, we do not add any chemical or biological agents here. Mechanically, by our methods, we bring in the air formation and we bring in the soft quality to the product. Say for example, number one, whipping egg, white, cream, etc. See, you take a clean bowl, stainless steel bowl, in which you carefully separate the egg, yolk and white. White you keep it in a separate bowl and yolk in a separate. White is we require because white is albumin which has more protein in it. Protein has lot of fibrous matters which is present in the egg white. When it is beaten, right, it will break into numerous assemblage of cells which has a capacity to entrap air. When you go on whipping, initially it will be slightly frothy, and when you go on continuously whipping it, right, it will become into a soft peak stage. Again, further, you add the castor sugar or granulated sugar gradually, continue to whip it. This granulated particles of the sugar aids the proteinous matter to break into more numerous assemblage of cells and which will hold air. Thus, after whipping correctly, once it becomes into a soft peak stage, you keep your ball tilted upside down. It will not fall down. That much foamy froth you get. So thus, aeration is naturally by mechanically you made it. But one thing you should keep in mind: any greasy particles of oil, impurities, some water moisture content in the bowl, it will affect the air formation. You should be very careful to take a clean bowl. You should wipe it thoroughly with the clean cloth. And when you break and separate the yolk and white, you should be very careful that not even a single drop of yolk is getting mixed up with the white. Here, one thing you should understand: when we do it in a machine, it will rotate in a continuous, constant speed. So we can put both yolk and white together, right? With this and gradually add sugar in the planetary mixes. You can get the same effect, same aeration as we do manually when we do it with the separation of egg and egg white and yolk. Do you understand? Then, what else is there? For cookies, we do cream the butter and powdered sugar. So there are grainy particles in powdered sugar. This sugar gets rubbed with the fat, and continuously when it is whipped or creamed, gradually it will become fluffy, and that will withhold some air in it. Thus you get aeration. Pasta. Naturally, you make a dosa batter, idli batter, or appam batter, right? Leave it overnight at room temperature, which is the favorable temperature for the yeast to react with sugar and to produce carbon dioxide and ethyl alcohol under favorable conditions, favorable circumstances. Because yeast reaction is inactive or dormant below 12 degrees Celsius, and slowly it will increase at 32 degrees Celsius it stops. Above 32 degrees Celsius, right, it will be more faster, and at 60 degrees Celsius all the yeast cells will die. So we maintain a moderate temperature to get an effective fermentation naturally by naturally occurring yeast. Right? The third one is lamination. What do you mean by lamination? Say for example, when we make puri, parathas, puffs, any sort of flaky pastries, we do not add any chemical or biological leavening agents. We follow a method called we sheet the dough, we laminate, we apply with a lot of fats, then we fold it. For flaky pastry, we will divide the fat into three parts. One part we will apply it on the sheet and we will fold triple fold method. Right? Then we rest it for 30-40 minutes so that the fat content will not melt. You can use either margarine or butter. Then again the second part after half an hour you will apply. Then give a triple fold. Again you rest it for half an hour. Again you take it out from the refrigerator, sheet it and apply the third part and give it a good fold. Leave it for another 30 minutes so that by rolling little amount of heat is produced. Our idea is to avoid melting of fat. So after folding so many times, 3 to 4 times folding, you get n number of layers. Then we cut and we give stuffing and we bake it. What happens is, all the moisture which is present in the dough evaporates during the time of baking because of the temperature, because of the higher temperature. So this moisture will become air bubbles and it will become steam, vacuum, and which will be trapped inside each layer. Thus you get layers, lot of puffed up layers in your puffs. That needs some practice, how to roll it, how to uniformly spread the fat, and how to maintain a temperature so that the fat is not melting and oozing out from the dough. Similarly, you make a chapati, apply a little bit of oil, you fold it and roll it, then you cook your chapati on a hot plate. You can observe it is puffing up and you can see some layers. So by lamination also you can get direction. So this Saccharomyces cerevisiae, as I told you, it lives in the temperature between 12 to 60 degrees Celsius. Right? Once the temperature goes down, that is below 12 degrees Celsius, it will be dormant, inactive. In freezing temperature, it will never be active. Once the temperature goes above 60 degrees Celsius, all the yeast cells will die. So the ideal proofing temperature for most of the yeast fermented product is 28 to 32 degrees Celsius. Right? If you need a faster fermentation, you need to add more quantity yeast, but you need a slow and steady fermentation for a little long time. Right? You can add lesser quantity yeast. There are different types of yeast available in the market. One is fresh yeast. The good quality of the fresh yeast is it smells like a ripened apple and it will have a velvety, cheesy texture. But when it has to be stored in the refrigerator, it is highly perishable. It has to be stored in the refrigerator, and its keeping quality is not more than 1 month.
This is
1 week is ideal. The yeast will remain fresh for 1 week. This is called as fresh yeast, or we can call it as compressed yeast. Then one more yeast is there, dry yeast. As compared to fresh yeast, dry yeast has more keeping quality, but its performance is little lesser. And one more yeast is there, which is called as dry instant yeast. Dry instant yeast is available in the market. Its keeping quality is good, as well as it will work very similar to the fresh or compressed yeast.
ഇത് തമ്മിൽ കാണാൻ വ്യത്യാസമുണ്ടോ സാറേ? കണ്ടാൽ ഒരുപോലെ തന്നെ ഇരിക്കുമോ? ഈ ഈ രണ്ട് ഈ
This instant yeast doesn't need any pre-activation, because it is already mixed with a little bit of yeast food, such as some kind of sugar. So it is, whenever you make any kind of bread, you can add the yeast acids into the dough and mix it. When you add yeast, one thing you should be very careful. It should not be straight away added to the fat or salt. It will have a retarding effect if there is too much of fat or too much of sugar in the dough. When it comes to your dry yeast and fresh yeast, to reactivate the yeast, there is a process called fly fermenting. Fly fermenting is nothing but 1 tablespoon of yeast, mix 1 tablespoon of flour and 1 tablespoon of sugar and 3 parts of water. That is with the room temperature. Water is in the room temperature. Mix it in a bowl and leave it on a table. So after some time, you can see lot of froth coming on the top, and when you keep it near to your ear, you will be able to hear a crackling noise. Then you can understand the yeast is very active, good, not spoiled. But a fresh yeast, by looking at the fresh yeast, you can understand easily it is about to spoil. Which is, how do you understand? You know, it will form into lumpy. It will leaves water. It leaves water. It will not be so velvety, shiny or cheesy with the cheesy texture. So you can easily understand the compressed yeast or the fresh yeast which is about to spoil, right? Or by means of your fly fermentation method, you can understand. And fly fermentation is also a method to reactivate the yeast. But for dry instant yeast, this fly fermentation is not at all required.
Fly fermenting composition എങ്ങനെയാണ്?
1 ടേബിൾ സ്പൂൺ ആ ഫ്ലൈ ഫെർമെൻറ്റേഷൻ്റെ ആ ഫോർമുല
1 tablespoon flour, 1 tablespoon sugar, and
1
3 parts of water.
3.
So do you understand? Any questions? Do you have any questions? So by using yeast, anything we ferment is called biological leavening or biological rising. Right? So this is fermentation. You should one thing very clearly you should understand, that is fermentation is a process in which yeast reacts with the sugar to form ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide produced in the dough will be trapped inside the dough upon heating, upon coagulation of proteins and caramelization of carbohydrates. Then the minimal quantities of ethyl alcohol formed will leave a nice flavor and aroma, and it will be volatile. It will be evaporated as we bake all the products mostly above 78 degrees Celsius. Is it clear? Now the last one is chemical leavening. See, many people they say chemically, if you add anything to the food, you know it is unhealthy. Chemicals are not good for it. Not at all. For that reason, I would like to tell you, even salt is a chemical, sugar is a chemical, and even our body is made out of lot of chemicals. Right? There are certain chemicals up to a certain quantity, up to an acceptable level, we can treat it. So, in certain products, we cannot add yeast. Say, for example, we make cookies, biscuits, cakes, right? Too much of yeast or in certain products, when we add yeast, it will leave an unpleasant flavor and it will not be suitable, right? Yeast require moisture, yeast food such as sugar, and favorable temperature conditions for fermentation. But in certain food products, we have to use the chemical leavening agents. Now we will see what are those chemical leavening agents. I would like to tell you a few chemical leavening agents. Number one is baking
സോഡ, ബേക്കിംഗ് പൗഡർ.
What do you mean by baking soda? It is nothing but sodium bicarbonate. Sodium bicarbonate is chemically called as Na2HCO3. Once this sodium bicarbonate is mixed with moisture and it is heated, it produces carbon dioxide gas. This carbon dioxide gas gives aeration to the cookies and cakes. But the disadvantage is this sodium carbonate with the presence of H2O, water, when it is heated, it produces carbon dioxide gas as well as leave a residue called sodium carbonate. This sodium carbonate is a washing soda actually. It's not a cooking soda. Sodium bicarbonate is a cooking soda and sodium carbonate is a washing soda which is used to make soap and detergents. So it will leave an alkaline flavor to the product. To substitute it, to neutralize this sodium carbonate, one should add some acid reacting ingredients such as cream of tartar, sour milk, sour cream, buttermilk, citric acid, tartaric acid, lemon juice into the recipe to neutralize it so that no harmful chemicals are present once the products are baked. Our idea and purpose is to get the carbon dioxide gas for the sake of aeration and softness. You understand? So this is a old method of using baking soda. This is more concentrated than baking powder. Baking What is the difference between baking soda and baking powder? What is the difference between baking soda and baking powder?
സാർ ഒരു മിനിറ്റ്, ഒരു മിനിറ്റ്.
Thus, see, this is the latest invention. After the invention of baking soda, they used it and it has been evaluated into baking powder because when we add baking powder, we need not add any acid reacting ingredients such as buttermilk, lemon juice, things like that, because it has already, baking powder has the acid reacting ingredients in it. This is the combination of, baking powder is a combination of baking soda plus acid reacting ingredients cream of tartar or citric acid plus 2 to 3% of cornstarch as a filler. Two to 3% of cornstarch as a filler. So this cornstarch emulsifies all the ingredients, coats all the ingredients together, and if you add 10 grams of baking powder to a product, only you need to add 5 grams of baking soda. So baking soda has a double the power, but when you add baking powder into it, you need not add any sour ingredients like acid reacting ingredients. So this is the difference, and also for the housewife it is easy to measure baking powder rather than accurately measuring baking soda when they make products in small quantities. See, that is why you can find bread flour. There is a separate bread flour in the market for the housewives to choose flours easily. Those who are not professionals, there is self-rising cake flours are available in the market. They use lemon juice, sour milk, buttermilk, sour cream to neutralize the alkaline base. Then, after the invention of baking soda, to have more power, they added baking soda. If it is 5 grams, they added double the quantity of baking powder to substitute the alkaline flavor or taste which occurs in the product. So finally, there is no harm in using this. Everything is neutralized. Only the thing, the carbon dioxide, the aeration is trapped, and we get nice texture to the product. If it is a box, it is naturally flaky in texture. If it is cookies, it's crumbly and soft in texture. If it is biscuits, it is crispy and brittle in texture. If it is bread, it is soft and foamy, light, spongy in texture. For the cake also the same, it is spongy or sticky, depends on the type of the cake we make. It does not mean that all the cakes requires the chemical leavening agents. Say for example, when you make fatless sponge cake, only the mechanical leavening agents, heating of egg and sugar is enough. That will do. No need to add any baking powder. Similarly, for brownie, we need a chewy and sticky texture and a taste. So we need not add baking powder when it comes to brownie or hot chocolate tart pudding, these kind of cakes. For certain cakes like plum cake, pound cake, shortened cakes, which require chemical leavening agents, as the quantity of fat content is more, it requires some more aeration to get the maximum softness and smoothness, lightness to the cakes. You can pause it now. Here we are going to talk about yeast. Yeast is a king of fungi, right? It has a size of 1 by 1000 inches, 1 part per 1000 inches square centimeter, right? It's a king of fungi. It's a microorganism, unicellular microorganism, right? There are wild yeast present, and cultivated yeast is nowadays being used in bakery industries, right? That also can be classified as brewers yeast and bakers yeast. Let's talk about bakers yeast. Yeast has a botanical name, that is Saccharomyces cerevisiae.